There we go. Terrific. All right. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this morning's webinar on holding safe events in 2022. Oh, and I just lost my notes. Look at that. I'm Laurie McIsaac, Director of Experiential Tourism here at RTO9. Life's becoming a little bit more normal this year. We're not quite where I think we all want to be, but we're getting there. Many of us have enjoyed a meal at a restaurant. I haven't done that yet, but I'm really looking forward to. Maybe gone to a movie theater, even dared to remove our masks. And I can tell you that feels a little weird to me after 2 years of having it. It's just a little weird to be able to take that off. So I almost feel naked. But going to an event, and even an outdoor event where there's lots of fresh air, still make people nervous. And I think a lot of us. So if you're an event planner, knowing how to manage the safety and security of not only the attendees, but your event staff and vendors is an absolute must. So just a few housekeeping notes before we get going. This is being recorded, as you heard, and the recording will be available on our website, rto9.ca, under presentations. Attendees will be on mute, but we encourage you to ask questions through the chat room at any time. And I can unmute you if you would like to have a direct conversation with Marnie during the question period, or I think Marnie, every once in a while you might ask if there are any questions. Please take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat room and tell us what you're hoping to learn today, or if there are any pressing concerns that you have for your upcoming events. So joining us this morning is Marnie Lapierre. Give us a little wave, Marnie, from Northern Events and Tourism Consulting. Marnie is a certified festivals and events expert and certified tourism industry specialist with over 25 years of experience in the industry, managing small and large scale events. She is a board member of Festival Events Ontario and sits on the 2022 Tourism Task Force for Ontario Culture Days. She's also a member of the network of municipal event planners and the Event Safety Alliance. And Marnie, I know there's a whole slew of other organizations that you're involved in, so your expertise is most welcome today. And I welcome you to the virtual stage, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody, and welcome to Operating Safe Events in 2022. Thank you for allowing me to have some of your time today to help you plan towards what wonderful things will be brought to the table event-wise in Ontario. And as Laurie has mentioned, I am Marnie Lapierre, owner consultant for Northern Events and Tourism Consulting. And I am here today for you. So I'm going to give you a little bit about me before we get started. I have a 25 years experience, as Laurie has mentioned, and maybe if you count the voluntold roles that I've had, it's probably a little bit more. That photo is me, taken at age 7 at Bass Lake in Timiskaming, along Timiskaming shores. I was fortunate to be raised as the daughter of a Scottish bagpiper who was extremely involved in the pipe band and appeared at every event, to which I tagged along, because in those days you followed your parents where they went. And a little bit later, I started my career as a Highland dance performer and competitor, and competed throughout Ontario. And I attended so many Scottish Highland festivals that I loved being part of those events. Sometimes it was just performing, sometimes it was competing. And I saw what it took to put these on. And I was in there for a couple of decades, so we'll just leave it at that. But fast forward a couple of decades, I did find myself working in the non-for-profit industry as an area administrator. I was assisting with area fundraising events, which I really enjoyed. And it was there that I received hands-on training with volunteer development and recruitment. And I realized that there are talents and commitments from the volunteers that are so much of greater value than the gold that is mined out of my own community, Timmins. Without the volunteers, it's really difficult to get forward in your goals for the event. And it's an important part of it. My role with the not-for-profit industry opened an opportunity to apply for a job with the local tourism office, where for a number of years, I was the coordinator of festivals, events, and special projects for the municipality. Now, this was a very all-encompassing role. I did everything from coordinating municipally led events. I facilitated government workshops, arranged for tours for local, for visiting dignitaries. and then also a branch into the marketing, administration for the office, and many other roles, many other roles. I was fortunate to be involved in many capacities with very large and very small events in the community, from one-day celebrations of Canada Day events to 8-day music and firework festivals. I coordinated the Great Canadian Kayak Challenge, which was a multi-year top 100 Festivals and Events Ontario award winner, which also gained our community as a top community award from the same organization, Festivals and Events Ontario. I also, along with that, raised 3 children. Granddaughter number 5 arrived 3 weeks ago. I'm owned by 3 cats, and I have an avid love of gardening, though I wish I wasn't in zone 2, where our growing season is a little short. And I'm continuously adding to my toolbox of experience, learning, and my love of events and tourism in Ontario. So yes, it started at an early age. I come from the not-for-profit arena with tourism and events, multiple festivals, many roles. I have, you name the role for a festival, I've done it, except for singing on stage, and that would take a lot more, and continuously adding to our toolbox. So now you've heard a little bit about me. I'd like to hear a little bit about you, so you can answer in the chat. I'd like to know what your first concert or event, if you haven't attended a concert yet, what it was, and what was your takeaway from the very first time. So I'll give you a moment to answer that in the chat while you're plugging those answers in. My very first concert was the Irish Rovers at age 9 in Kirkland Lake. I was in love with the Unicorn song, and I wanted to tour with the group so that I could just listen to them all the time. It was an amazing experience. It was also my first late night experience as a child. And that was definitely a impactful experience for me. So a few more, and I'm just going to click on the chat. I don't know if you're going to see the chat previews, but I'm just going to take a look at it. Somebody got to see Prince. Lori, was that you? Oh, wonderful.
So, it was, and it stuck with me forever.
I bet. I've only seen him on the small screen, and I would love to see him again. So the next one is, now that things are opening up, what concert or event would you like to see next? I can't not put my finger on which one, because I want to get out and see everything. As an event organizer, manager, it's been a difficult couple of years, and I imagine the same for you as well. I get all the notifications of the wonderful events that are coming up this year, and I want to be at every single one of them. So if there's something that is on the horizon coming your way, or at your end of the province, so to speak, what would you love to see next? And oh, somebody got to see Corey Hart. Oh, we almost had him for Stars and Thunder. Tragically hip. Oh, amazing. Celine Dion. Nosebleeds are great because the sound is still amazing no matter where you are. Chris Stapleton. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Oops, sorry, I'm just going to go back. I was very fortunate that I got to take a number of things off of my bucket list, and I should have shared the picture, but I got to meet Alan Frew. And as a teenager, I was going to marry Alan Frew. And when he came and performed at the Stars and Thunder event, I got to meet him face to face, and it was, I became that fan. I was just in awe. I need to get control over that. So today, the 3 main topics that we're going to cover are staff and volunteer safety, venue, event safety, and safety resources. These topics are something that I could expand on for an entire day or more. I've been very fortunate that I've been a participant at a number of safety presentations done through different associations, Festivals and Events Ontario, the Event Safety Alliance, the International Festivals and Events Association. They have a great reservoir of talent that can bring forth some amazing topics that apply to your safety concerns for an event. And if you have a chance at the end, you'll see that I'm going to be listing some of those resources. I highly recommend having a pen and paper and connecting with these organizations if you haven't already. So I'm going to give a moment. What is your burning question about hosting a safe event this year? Times are a little bit different. And Lori, I'm going to ask if you can, in the chat, if anybody's sharing their question, if you could bring it forward, we could take a moment to either discuss it a little bit, or we can return back to that at the presentation.
I will.
Thank you. Thank you. I know for myself, one of my concerns was working with volunteers safely during the time of the pandemic, because that is a multi-layer issue between what is expected of an event, of a venue, of an organization hosting an event. So we can return to that, but this is something to keep in the back of your mind. And when we get to the question and answers portion, we can address that definitely. You may think of something as we go along. So staff and volunteer safety. It is well known in my community that I would take a bullet for my volunteers. They are an amazing, amazing group of people. You do find in communities, it is usually the same 10 to 15 people that show up to help. But over time, through our tourism office, as we built events, we were able to expand our database of volunteers and people willing to come out and do everything from picking up garbage to shuttling VIPs back and forth to the airport, to putting up signs, taking down signs, everything. So when I see that these people give of their own time and are committed and are not doing it for a personal gain other than to be part of the community and support the event or cause, they are our greatest resource. So things to consider when you're putting together your plan for this year. We've had 2 years to prepare for the opening, and I've been saying all along, it is a great time to take down your protocols book and dust it off and take a look at what might need updating, improving, or removing altogether and replacing with some other protocol. So does your current onboarding program for staff or volunteers address health and safety issues? When did you last update your health and safety protocols and training? And this is something, if you work outside of the industry, if this is your volunteer role and you have a role with another industry, even in retail, there's always those training books that are there that you have to sign off that you've done training. The same could be implemented for your own organization. And if you don't have one, this is the perfect time to start one. And we'll come to those resources in a little bit, but it is definitely something to consider as you're beginning to prepare, because many of us have lost the connection with our volunteers over the past while because we haven't been doing events. And now we're calling them back. The horn is sounding to return. So let's make sure we're prepared for their return. They will have questions as well, because every municipality is going to have a different take on how we return to events. The municipalities that you work with have had the time and have taken opportunity to change the way things are done. So have the venues. If you're working with a private venue, they have different mandates to meet when it comes to working with the local health unit, for example, or even WSIB, or the list goes on and on. So you need to connect and see what you need to change in your own safety, your own health protocols and training. And another one that is important is the personal protective equipment. That may look a little bit different now because of these changes that may have happened, the changes that have happened. There may be certain areas where it is required that you wear a mask. You may want to research through the different resources that are going to be provided to you here today, what maybe you should be implementing that the staff and volunteer wear, what the volunteers and staff will be wearing when they're, for example, parking lot attendants, as opposed to someone who's helping move large items to and from the stage, if you have a stage area, or putting up 10 by 10 tents for the marketplace or working with your food vendors, it's going to be a little bit different. So what kind of personal protective equipment do they need? Even those that are attending to grounds maintenance, picking up the garbage, do they have their gloves? Do they have the grabbers, as we call them here? Do they have protective coverings for their clothing? Or even goggles? Even, do you have training for these volunteers and staff to pick up paraphernalia that are indicative of somebody having done drug use? Have you taught them proper disposal methods? Or do you have a team that will respond to that? This is all part and parcel of your onboarding and your training for volunteers. And some of you, this might be something that is already being implemented, and that is fantastic. But again, go back and take a look at what is current for your protocols and let us know.
Marnie,
yes,
I just on your PPE point, I think something that's probably going to be a bit of a struggle, just because we're still, hopefully we're coming out of COVID, but for a lot of people, they're still very, very concerned and still mask up and glove up and everything else. And I think the struggle for event coordinators is going to be, what level should we be at? So, do we allow some staff to not wear masks if they don't want to, or wear masks if they want to, if that's the way? Where do we find the sweet spot of ensuring that people who are coming to our events feel that we are taking the steps necessary to protect them without, I don't know, maybe infringing on the rights of others? I think sort of trying to find that sweet spot this summer specifically can be a challenge. And I would think that messaging right at your entrance points are going to be important. Can you just talk a little bit more about that for me?
Absolutely. In Timmins, we've actually encountered working with the community about attending events safely. Now, as we know, many restrictions have been dropped. So your first stop to find out what the mandate is your health unit, because they follow what the provincial guidelines are, and they can educate you along that respect. There may be no requirements, but that's not to say you cannot put something in effect prior to. You may have vendors and volunteers and staff that are very, very concerned about exposure, but still want to be part of it. You can, and I have seen this at a few of the events here already, start the notification prior to the event, through your media and marketing, through social media, advising people that while we understand restrictions have been lifted or lessened, that we do ask that if you would consider masking. A respectful form of approach to the community will help. You will not get everyone complying with your request unless it is a mandate from the government. I did notice that there were quite a number of people that respected the organization's request. Very few did, and we didn't see any negative backlash. And where you mostly notice it in social media, people were very appreciative of that. And we also included in the messaging to be respectful of those who wish or wish not to mask, because everybody has their reasons to do so. And luckily, so far, there has been no incident. But I would definitely recommend connecting with your health unit to see what their recommendations are. Your venue may have recommendations or institute a policy that there is to be masking. You have to have that conversation with that venue, whether it is private owned or municipally owned. That definitely has to be something that is brought up when you're making those bookings. And I request that should that policy change, that you be notified well in advance, so that you can prepare everybody from your staff and volunteers to the public who will be attending. So that's that's the little bit of experience that we've had so far, and the suggestion going forward. You can also educate yourself as well to the government policy at the various websites that the government has provided, and those usually link through your health unit as well. So inclusive of that, Are you hosting safety training sessions and daily safety review with your staff and volunteers? And by daily safety review, that is during the event, not prior to. That would be a little cumbersome. But a safety training session for a new volunteer or volunteers returning is definitely a good idea, because again, you may have these changes, or they just may be reminded of what needs to be done at and during the event, because it's been a little while. And sometimes it's easy to forget the little things. For example, I've had to remind certain volunteers on numerous occasions to put the gloves on if they're doing garbage duty. We don't touch anything with bare hands. It's just definitely not a healthy thing to do. And just as Lori mentioned, as part of preparing your event to reopen, has your organization included policy or protocol to manage staff or volunteers who are anti-mask? Oops, sorry, I'm just going to go back. I clicked too quickly. And this also should be communicated, and we'll discuss that coming forward, with your vendors or exhibitors and talent and contractors that will be at the event, during the event, and even set up and tear down. So definitely take a look at your policies binder when it comes to health and safety, personal protective equipment. What are your policies? When was the last training session you had? What does your daily safety review look like? Aside from potential trip and fall hazards, there are many other items that should be addressed. And in the resources section at the end of the presentation today, we'll definitely have a list of places that you can turn to for a full list of what should be included in your safety review. Staff and volunteer safety continued. Who are your partners regarding the event's health and safety risk management? So when you are putting together your policy, or when you put your policy together, who was part of that? Did you have somebody who was an official that could speak to various aspects of your safety and risk management? Did you involve the local police force in regards to your event? This is something that you would do, especially if you have liquor available at the event. If there is a potential for aggressive behavior, music can bring out the best and the worst in people. So you definitely want to work with that kind of a partner. Your health unit is part of your entourage of partners when it comes to not only managing pandemic restrictions, but also your food handling that will be at the event. And the list will go on, your municipality and many more. Do you hold a post-event SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the health and safety pillar of your event? This could be a meeting completely aside from everything else, dependent on the size of your event and past experiences and what went on and what you'd like to avoid going forward. So when you're considering this, what are your health and safety threats? Contagion, first and foremost on everyone's mind right now, because that has changed the landscape of how we present events and how we move going forward. Weather, I'll be touching on a couple of these in a moment, but weather is definitely something that has to be considered when you're hosting an event outside. Whether it's during the winter, spring, summer, or fall, there's always something that you have to be keenly aware of. Terrorist does not just mean an outside entity from another country coming in, making threats towards the event. Terrorist activity could also mean somebody from the community who is in distress and wishes to make a rather horrible statement by going through your event with a vehicle where vehicles aren't supposed to be, in that area. And physical human error happens to be one of the largest health and safety threats. Complacency ends up causing so many issues going forward. We've always left that ladder in that particular place, which is close to a corner where somebody could be bounding through and knock into the, it is human error that tends to be the largest. And I laugh because there has been so many incidents of it that you would think we've all accepted that this is something real. It doesn't. I've seen the most simplest of things that could have been avoided result in loss of manpower or shutting down events, and we don't want to have that happen. And it's the first thing when you're doing a health and safety training is your awareness of the site, what is happening and what is going on. I myself at my events, I'm the person going through with the clipboard, taking off that wires are covered, 10 by 10 tents are erected correctly and safely and tagged on the guide wires so that nobody walks into them. And my list goes on and on and on. It's quite extensive, but I think it's definitely lessened the number of things that can happen. So event safety. When you're deciding where your event should take place and how it should be set up, you need to consider. Now, this is for if you're deciding to change venues because perhaps the event has changed somewhat in the 2 years as you've decided to rejig, and perhaps the location currently held is no longer suitable. Capacity. We know that the crowds may not be the same as what they were, the number of people that are in there. You may not have the same amount of vendors or exhibitors. You may not have the same amount of children's activities if that is part of your setup. You may not need as large a stage, or you may need a larger stage. Does the site that you're selecting or that you have selected, will it safely allow the capacity of the event to move forward? What will your target audience look like? Audiences change dependent on the activities available to them. Your audience for a folk music or country music is going to look vastly different from rap or hip hop. The crowd will react differently to different people taking the stage. They will have different needs when it comes to food and beverage. And if you're not providing that, you will need to take a look at what your site map is going to look like. So you need to know your audience. Your activities and peripheral activities. If previously you had a children's activity area, if you had a quiet station for nursing mothers or seniors who needed to have a break throughout the day, is that still part of it? Is there a place on site that can effectively take place? Your infrastructure. You will need, if you select a site that has no access to public bathroom facilities, you're going to have to realize that you'll need porta potties, hand washing stations, accessible facilities for people with mobility needs. I'm just going to move this. And then along that lines, accessibility is going to be a big part of what your event needs to consider. If it hasn't, if you've always done everything the same, you'll need to ensure that it is AODA compliant. And that is a resource that will be listed at the end where you can find some more information about it. Your access and egress, is it suitable to the event? If you are expecting 10,000 people, what will the bottleneck look like at your point of ticketing if there are not pre-ticket sales? In case of emergency, what is your egress going to look like in order for people to get out of there quickly? One event that I was a part of, which was completely gated and fenced, on the second day of the event, it was necessary because of the size of the crowd that some of the gating changed to be, or fencing needed to be changed to be immediate gates should something go south during the event, so that people had immediate access to an exit quickly and safely. Suitability. Is this a site that is suitable to the event? Is there enough room for standing and seating? Is it a site that is not prone to flooding? And are you dealing with mud? What is the past history of the site for events the size of yours? And obstacles. If you're setting up a concert, are there trees and buildings in the way too close to the staging? Your site layout will need to address that. Are there divots and ditches if you're in a park area that need to be covered or dealt with, or orange pylons put to make notice that it is a hazard? Do you have enough parking? Are there alternatives to parking? How can people get there and safely return home? Are there busing? All of this needs to be considered when you're setting your venue sites up where you'll hold this wonderful event. Does it have everything people need to safely access, enjoy, and then leave? If you are including a marketplace or an area for sponsors to exhibit, have you addressed potential risks, reviewed their individual exhibit plan, and informed them of yours? So that when you have granted a 20 by 20 space to an exhibitor who may be a sponsor, is it a safe exhibit that they wish to bring in? If they're bringing in a piece of equipment that potentially children could climb on and experience. In the mining industry, we have a few of those that are great source of attracting kids to check things out, or even an EMS vehicle. What protocols do they have in place to ensure that the kids can't turn it on and run around the park with it? Just one of many things. And as part of your obligation to these sponsors or vendors or exhibitors, you must provide them with your safety plan so that they know if something occurs, what is the shutdown protocol? If there's inclement weather coming, will that affect their exhibit? How do they get out of there? All of that needs to be identified. I know at the beginning of every event, we do the housekeeping speech of where exits are, where the smoking area is, where the fenced in beer garden is, but we also have to make note of where emergency exits are that are in a larger area of the park. A map, if there is available for handout, or even in a large scale area, is very beneficial, and even on the website. So I'm hoping this will work. Okay, so the reason I see I've said all of this is because these things do happen, and it's recent, as much as recently as the Travis Scott event that you may have heard about that occurred in the United States. Canada is just getting back into the swing of things, and there have been incidents in Canada, but I wanted to bring something a little bit closer. Now, this doesn't have any negative or footage that you need to be concerned about, but I'm going to just show you the size of the crowd, and hopefully this will work. There we go. This event was at Astro World Festival in Houston.
Marnie?
Travis Scott. Yes, dear.
Sorry, we can't see.
Oh, you can't see it. Oh
no,
no.
we still see the link.
Oh no. And it's not letting me. Oh, my screen sharing is paused. Can I? Oh no. And of course it's not going to let me. Okay, so the link will be there, but there was a event at Astro World in Houston. Travis Scott was on the stage. He is a hip hop rap artist, and due to very poor organization of the event, poor management of the security staff, unfortunately there was a rush to the stage when the sold out event where 50,000 people attended came in. They weren't ready for it. They didn't have a proper plan in place. And that was definitely a detriment to it. And if you'll see with the link later on, as you get the screen slides in your emails, I advise you to take a look at it and see what happens when a failure to plan takes place.
Marnie, can I ask you a favor? Would you, oh, there it is. Would you be able to just drop that link into the chat room so people can get it on themselves? That would be amazing.
Definitely. Let's see if I can get that. Let me see.
You can you right click the link and press copy?
All that happens when I right click is it wants me to go to the next slide.
Yeah, the YouTube. Okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay. I will just keep it up on the screen there, and I will I'll type it in.
And another one that occurred in Scotland was the Grand Marquee tent, where competitors would be inside to participate, and it was during setup. The tent was not secured properly. This was, I believe, a 200 by 50 tent that went with the wind. Luckily, nobody was injured, but again, somebody didn't do their safety check in time. Oh, for heaven's sake, there we go. In Timmins, back in 2016, I was fortunate to be part of the committee that put together the In Timmins event for the Gord Downey Tragically Hip's last live to air concert. And this was an amazing event. We had 2 weeks to put it together, and everything was done correctly. I, at the time, was not part of the safety committee, but we did find out through notification that the weather was now about to turn very bad about an hour before opening, that we had maybe 2.5 hours before we had to have concern. So we were hoping that the concert, which was live to air, would be completed and people be gone by that time. In Northern Ontario, we are subject to winds that commence at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and last till about 6:30. These are gusts. They normally just blow over your patio furniture. But in this particular case, the winds were the predecessor to the storm that was coming through. We were able to get everybody into the park, and we were about halfway through the event when the storm was skirting the park. And by skirting, it still had maybe about 20 to 15 kilometers away, to the point where we were starting to count the thunder and lightning strikes that we could visually see. And there hadn't been a plan to evacuate. And this is where my obsession with safe events began, because we realized that this could be very bad. We did have the rain that was happening, but that wasn't sending anybody home. We had live entertainment on the stage when the concert wasn't in place. We had to close down the stage because of the amount of water. And luckily for us, the gusts came at a time that pushed the storm away. But we would have had to evacuate the equivalent of about 2,500 people out of the park to safer areas. And we would have thought being under the tent would be safe. No, it wasn't, because the poles for the tent, which was a 60 by 100, were not grounded. It was at that point that I changed my view on how much fun events are as to how much safe support events require. That is something that we could control somewhat, but you can't control the weather as much as you try. The other thing that you cannot, that you can plan for, is crowd and entertainment. The other photo that you'll see, Rock on the River made a profit. A very proud grassroots organization in our community that puts together an amazing event every year, and they bring in some very top quality Canadian talent. We were fortunate that year to have Classified come and perform. Very energetic, very excellent stage performer. A little bit different personality to work with that we had before. And the Rock on the River committee had separated seating from VIP to general public. And Classified really enjoys connecting with his audience and wanted to ensure everyone had a good time. So he encouraged the general public to join the VIP crowd. All of a sudden, the bicycle holder type barriers were not sufficient, and there was a rush. Nobody was injured. The VIP area, though large, didn't have hundreds of people in it. And all of a sudden now we have a combined crowd, a push towards the stage. I was in the VIP area. I was not an organizer of this particular event. This particular event took place 1 year and a couple of weeks after the Tragically Hip event. in that space of time, I had educated myself about safe events. I was there with friends and I said, there is going to be a rush. We need to know how to exit here safely in case there is a crush towards the stage, because there was I believe a 10 or 15 foot distance from the final barrier before the stage to the stage. And I identified a safe escape route. Luckily, it didn't come to that. We were able to enjoy the remainder of the concert. But had I been Miss Joe Public and not knowing how to get out of there, I could have been easily trapped, had not Timmins been a very relaxed community in regards to a community crush towards the stage. But this is something to bear in mind when developing your health and safety protocols. What are your safety protocols regarding your stage? What are your barriers like to protect not only the public, but your entertainers and your stage crew from an onslaught of excited spectators? Again, there are some resources that will be at the end of this particular presentation to you today that will help you address these in greater detail. Now, I know I had said recent, but these two particular events were ones that I was present for and can speak from experience. And I really hope that going forward, if this reaches just one person, we know that that makes one more event, that it will be safer for everyone to participate. And I do apologize about the links not working. They worked perfectly yesterday when I tested them, but I guess they don't share correctly. That'll change for my next presentation. Now, we had also talked about how your crowds will be different. And unfortunately, this doesn't show it, it cut him out, but on the left of the screen is the crowd in Timmins that showed up. And this is probably about half of the crowd that showed up in Timmins for the Keith Urban concert as part of the first Stars and Thunder 8-day concert that we held. And these are country fans, all very respectful, no real issues in the festival grounds. It was a wonderful experience. Keith, as expected, put on a great show. And then to the right of your screen is the summer concert series, where we have many different types of entertainment participate over the years. You still, for that type of event, need to have a safety protocol. You are exposed to weather. And oh, by the way, these are about maybe 40 yards from each other, these two sites. You still have to have safety protocols in place. You have people in the park, a lightning strike can happen. You could have somebody drive through with a vehicle. You could have a potential shooting. You could have a choking incident. What are your protocols to keep your attendees and your participants who are on stage safe? So it might be a smaller scale if you've got a small summer concert series, but you still have to take into consideration and plan for the same risks that can occur when you've got 20,000 people in the park. So here we are at the safety resources portion. This, what I'm going to be sharing with you, is part of my coordinator's Bible. It is the second page for me after the title, because these are the groups that I work with to ensure that events going forward are safe. So your venue is your first one, because they will have protocols already normally. You'll want to find out what those are. Have they changed in the last couple of years since the shutdown occurred? And do they have plans to change them prior to your event? Your municipality. Some have drawn tighter lines around the venues that they provide to the community to use. They work with various departments. They will assist you with a safety and risk plan normally, or they will make suggestions who you can within the community have these discussions with. And there should be a meeting with all of your EMS services, no matter the size of your event. They should be notified, even if it's a bake sale, that there is a bake sale happening at such and such a location. They may show up to purchase, which is a great thing. That there could be congestion of vehicles or foot traffic, and they will be able to facilitate that. Your ambulances, who knows, somebody may be choking, you may need to bring somebody in. Your local health unit, they can address any contagion concerns. They can address any food handling requirements that need to be met. Both the municipality and the health unit will work with food trucks to ensure that they're meeting all the regulations for the event that you're wishing to hold. AGCO, they have been a great resource, especially if you are serving liquor, spirits, beer, wine, whatever at your event. They will send a representative out if they have the manpower at that time to review. They have ultimate power to shut down your event if if your servers are not following protocols. If you're selling 50-50 tickets or any type of fundraising ticket that is licensed, they're the ones who determine that this is going to go ahead or not. It should be mentioned that the local health unit will send people out to your event to check on your food vendors, on your food trucks, on even the way that the licensed beverages are served. If they're not being done correctly, they also have the power to shut down that part of the event. The Event Safety Alliance of Canada is a part of the Event Safety Alliance. They have fantastic resources, especially if you are a member. You can access all of this, and you'll see that there are the websites there. The Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety. I stumbled across this a little while back, simply because I like to keep current on trends for health and safety issues regarding events, and found that they have a whole section regarding live performances. And it's very eye-opening. Some of the Event Safety Alliance of Canada, their training modules also speak to the same content as the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety. They are very happy to have conversation with you if you have any questions, or if you want to reach out to them to help develop your safety plan or brush up your safety plan. Festivals and Events Ontario, I know you've heard that name quite a few times. They're not just about the awards and networking, they're also about ensuring that you have these resources to hold your events safely. They've presented many webinars during their yearly conference and also throughout the year through webinars. There are Tuesday talks, and myself, I'm also part of their monthly Festivals Helping Festivals, where we have open discourse between festivals in Ontario, where certain topics are addressed on that particular day. Sometimes we go off topic because one topic leads into another, and it's very organic, so that we all see that whether you're holding a farmer's market or you're holding a 3-day rock festival, sometimes one can assist the other with information to help build that event into something even better, safer. What the information is there for everyone to share. If you are a member of Festivals and Events Ontario, you do have access to all the past presentations. People and organizations who are not can watch this live. If you go to the Festivals and Events Ontario website, they do have the links. The only drawback is you won't have access post presentation. So I recommend, if you have it in the timeline and budget, to definitely become a member. I was able to become a member through my past experiences, and going forward with my career, I will remain a member because they are an amazing resource on so many levels. And then, of course, you're certified festivals and events experts like myself. There are many of us throughout Ontario. Some are designated in other facilitations, but there's definitely a number that can help you with the safe planning portion of your event, not to mention other areas that might need a little bit sprucing up or a review. So these are some of the best resources that are going forward for your event. From there, you'll probably find that they branch out into other organizations, and it's a perfect learning experience if you haven't taken advantage of this yet. They're all there to help you build your event or maintain your event as the safe occurrence in your community that it is now. So I will open it now. to questions.
Perfect. So Marnie, thank you for that. Great information. There's so much to do when you're organizing an event. Kudos to everyone who does that. We did have a question in the chat. How do you make attendees feel comfortable enough to attend? So this is something we haven't really dealt with in the past, pre-pandemic.
That's true. It's communication. I think the more communication you can get out to your attendees, the better. If you're selling tickets, you now have a database where you can continue to communicate with them right up to and during the event, even post-event. And, tips to have a great experience at our event, kind of newsletter to go out and address what you're doing to ensure that they have a safe experience, what recommendations you make to them when they arrive on site to be prepared for. Your event may not allow umbrellas for inclement weather. Well, then you can recommend where they could potentially wear those lovely rain ponchos that come in many splendid colors that add to the festival atmosphere. You can identify if there is a requirement to wear masks, where the hand washing and hand sanitizing stations are. A site map will help them feel comfortable prior to the event. Get that up on your website, on your social media, so that they understand that these precautions have been taken and that you want to ensure that they arrive safely, have a great time safely, and head home safely.
Excellent. Please, if you have any questions, enter them in the chat room, or if you'd like to have a direct conversation, I can unmute you if you would like to have a bit of a longer talk. We've got about 7 minutes left. A question that, as I was listening to you, Marnie, is tracking still necessary?
That depends on the community. I know Timmins was long encumbered by tracking, probably longer than most of the other parts of the province, because we have a geographical conundrum where we have many remote communities that access our own resources here. And we were very restricted for a very long time because we were being held against the statistics that were coming out of certain areas of Southern Ontario. So it will depend. It will depend. And that's a conversation definitely to have with your health unit, with your municipality, and check your government resources too, where they're the ones who ordain this.
Okay, and I will say I dropped a couple of links into the chat room. The first one is the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety events and gatherings during COVID-19 pandemic. So a lot of these, of course, are still very, very active. There is screening and contact tracing. They talk about how you should do it, and importantly, most importantly, I think maybe is what do you do with that information when you're done? Because there's a privacy issue there, so you can't just throw it on a desk somewhere. You can't leave it out for other people to find. But it talks about things like, as Marnie has talked about today, physical barriers, ventilation, control measures, a COVID-19 response plan. So what happens if something happens and an ambulance is called, and I don't know, you just never know what can happen. But what's most important, of course, is being prepared. So I would encourage you to go onto that website, and then of course the Festivals and Events Ontario website, which also talks about how to manage events this summer. Marnie, I know you've done a ton of events, and I know this year it's going to look different yet again, and it will probably still, to some degree, hopefully lesser, but none of us know. Next year will be a little bit easier on everyone, but I think it's just a bit of a wake-up call for all of us to stop and consider from a couple of standpoints. One, the importance of the onboarding and training of your event staff. I'm a big proponent of doing role playing with them beforehand. So if you have somebody come up who is maybe an anti-masker to the point where they're going to, verbally assault somebody with a mask, what do you do? So talking those things through with your staff are really, really important. Giving them the knowledge to be able to respond to individuals like that. and answer those questions that might be asked. And it really is, it's not something that you have to take on all yourself. When you get any group of people, i.e. your event staff together, they're going to have questions of their own. So it's really great to just have, take that half an hour, 15 minutes before you start each day, if you're a multi-day event, and talk about how was yesterday, what issues arose, how was it handled, is there a different way we need to handle it moving forward. And then of course you talked about the SWOT analysis after an event, and I would actually say maybe that you should do a SWOT analysis before your event, and with your team to talk about the potential things that can happen and how that would be managed. So just some really thoughtful processes that need to take place this year. I don't see any other question marks. Again, if you'd like to, if you'd like me to unmute you, please let me know. First and foremost, of course, it's important to make sure that when you reach out to your health department, you have to know what is mandated in your area. And then signage at the beginning. I know, Marnie, when we were in practice prior to starting, we talked about the importance of having some sort of signage, and that really should echo what you have relayed through a pre-event newsletter or your social media, or just reaching out to your registrant list to talk about what you're doing today in your event to make sure that health and safety is addressed. They like to see that. It's that badge of honor that you can put out right at the gate when people are coming through to say, you know what, we've got this covered. Here's what we're doing. You can bullet point your list if that's easier, I would say. And then make sure, of course, there's a number there if anyone wants to reach someone, an event organizer, to talk about things maybe afterwards. If you, I worked for someone before who had this awesome saying, and it just stuck with me. And I'm sure it's somebody famous who said it before, but it's plan the work and work the plan. So, and Marnie, I'm sure you've heard that before, and I'm sure anyone who is on the talk on the webinar today has heard it as well. But it's so much more important now that we're coming out, and I say that with a little bit of hesitancy, of COVID, that people feel comfortable when they're coming to your event. They feel that you've got their back. They feel that you've got a process if something happens. And that you know where to go and where to look to get that, which is what today is all about. So Marnie, I think I don't know if you've got the list from your last slide. So this presentation will be, along with the recording, will be posted on our website, rto9.ca. I'm just going to double check and make sure there are not. Okay, so no other questions, but really great. We're right at 11 o'clock, so I'm just going to wrap it up in the interest of everyone's time. Marnie, thank you so much for bringing your expertise today. You've made some excellent points of consideration. Again, I've dropped those links into the website. On the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety, there is a tip sheet. I'm sure there are more tip sheets on festivals and events. Arm yourself with the knowledge that you need to make sure that things are going through. And there's a new message coming through here. There we go. So a communication pre and post event, that's a really important tool that I think I'm seeing more and more people do. So if you don't do that, plan to have that sort of email go out to the people who are attending. Your staff and volunteer safety, they've got to feel safe in order to make your attendees feel safe. And that's something you have to take very seriously. PPE, of course, contact your local health department on all fronts about what you're doing. And then in closing, just reach out to everyone that you need to reach out to. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know an answer to something from an event standpoint, Marnie, I'm sure they could drop you an email and
Absolutely.
help. Yeah, I appreciate that. And again, you can go to our website, rto9.ca, under past presentations, and you can find the recordings. It'll take us a couple of days to get this one put up. But there are tons of recordings from past webinars that we have had, workshops that we have had. And I would encourage you, if you if you are not receiving our newsletter, to sign up for the newsletter. It's a once a month thing. We're not going to hound you. You can always opt out at any point, but it just will share with you what we're doing at RTO9, future workshops and webinars that we have. And if you are looking for resources, anything like that within the tourism industry, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is on our website, and I'm just going to put my address here. Should have done that before. And I'm happy to help point you in the right direction, find you that person you need to find, and help you with your events. We also do push out through social media events that are happening within our region. And if you go onto rto9.ca, right on the landing page, as the ribbon rolls through, there is how to connect with us. So if you click on that link, it tells you the best way to, what hashtags to use in order to let us know what you're doing. So Marnie, thank you once again for sharing all your knowledge with us. And I appreciate everyone taking the time today. You stayed right to the end, which is always a great sign. And if either Marnie or myself can help, please feel free to reach out. I wish everyone a happy, not so sunny day. It's okay. More sun is coming back and things will get greener. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate you attending. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.